Hi folks, my name is Warbass. I'm going to take you behind the scenes of a patch spanning both my two cases that I'm working on for the last, about 2 days. It's taken quite a bit of practice to get it to a point where I'm happy with it and happy with the transitions. And I want to just discuss a little bit about what that means for me and how I think about practice and how I think about creating a performance or a track or a jam, or pick whatever word you want to describe it. I will frequently completely depatch both of these cases, remove all the cables, and start from scratch, even though many of them go back into similar spots. You know, this bundle of gray cables here between the sequencer and my drum machine is basically always the same. I still find it handy to have a clean slate, rebuild the patch, figure out how I want it to be different, and then I will kind of work on a particular sound. Sometimes it starts with a sample, which is where this one began. And I'll work on that and try to find a couple of different almost scenes within the case that I like, and then work on practicing moving between those and transitioning throughout a piece. And it can be really tricky in modular, specifically if you have a kind of A part, a B part, you go to a C part and then go back to that A part. It can be really hard to find that spot if you have a certain position on a cutoff, a certain position on a wet dry somewhere else, CVs at some certain space. Sometimes things are just randomly fueled that it's almost impossible to make it back to that spot, even if you have all of the things that you're controlling manually in exactly the right place. And I think that's part of the fun, because you can kind of end up in a net new third place. But when you're trying to do something that's repeatable, it can be really tricky and take quite a bit of practice to get it somewhere that you're happy with. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different parts in this piece, where it started from, and then play out the take that I just recorded at the end of this video. So I mentioned this all kind of started from a sample. This is off of a single. Let's see where the focus is on this camera right now. From Dwelle, I Think I Love You. I picked up a stack of 25-cent records from a record shop a long time ago, not knowing what was in them. It ended up being a bunch of late 90s, early aughts singles, mostly hip hop, R&B, and some other random ones tucked in there. But what's neat about those records is that they've got the instrumental track, they've got the acapella track, the radio edit, and the clean edit. But that acapella track can be really cool to sample. So I grabbed a little loop off of that and pitched it down, which sounds like this. So that's at half speed. I'm then re-synthesizing it and pitching it back up with panharmonium. And then using beads to add like a third, almost like sparkle layer. There's that beads by itself, just so you can hear the different parts. The whole mix from this case really follows my init patch pretty closely from that longer video, but I'm taking the outs from Jumblehenge here and bringing it actually over into SD Mix, where I'm merging it with just a drone from Polygogo. So I'll kind of bring that up. Literally just a drone tone over there. That is then being actually mixed into the drums and side-chained against the drums in the Endorphin cockpit. So the drums, let's see if I can do this. That's all the Elixir. That entire mix is going through Golden Master, then through the dual 100 grits. The stereo distortion out for my dual 100 grits is coming over into Axis and being crossfaded between a single mono non-distorted out of one of the 100 grits through broken tape from Air Instruments to then fade back and forth between the full stereo signal of the 100 grits and a mono, tape distortion simulator, which can kind of sound pretty crazy, even if nothing's through it. It's got such a weird buffer. I am actually using guillotine on the broken tape to crank the volume back up to compete with the dual 100 grits, and also adds this pretty crazy level of distortion back on it. That then is coming out of Axis, whichever side of the crossfader I'm currently playing, going into Star Lab, and then into my end of chain Shackmat high pass, the Religio, and eventually over here onto the wave recorder. So that's the whole patch in a sense, and my goal is to kind of transition from these weird, let's just put something through this real quick. Those kind of different weird spaces from this noisy, chaotic tape simulator to playing back the sample, some throwing a ton of reverb on and then off and then back on again, really playing 100 grit down here with Lapsus, and then try and just make something that kind of makes sense. Transitioning drums in and then out and back in again is probably the thing I need most practice on. Let's cut that noise. I think that literally I don't think there's a short answer to that. I think it's literally I need more practice on it. It's hard to, the timing is one thing, keeping things in sync is another thing, and then just knowing tastefully like at what point is the right moment to bring something heavy in versus something softer versus like a third rhythm, or like a anti-pattern or a syncopation to the rhythm that feels good versus when it might feel like it's too much. So that's what's going on here. I wanted to talk a little bit about it and then let you hear the practice. Normally I would just record these things, throw them up on YouTube and be done with it. But I think the way that this channel is going to be used is going to be just a kind of documentation of my refinement of my case, hardware approach, and kind of public practice. Here's what I'm working on. Here's where I think my problems are. Here's the things that I think are going well. What do you think? And maybe have a conversation with you folks around those same topics, among just other kind of random videos that I might put up. So I'll let the performance play out from here. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback, comments, thoughts. That's it for now. Until next time.